David Fincher is a very personal director to me for a number of reasons. I happen to love his thrillers. That dark atmosphere like in Seven, the complicated and layered plots like in Gone Girl, the dark visuals on the screen, the building tension, and other aspects of his work have a certain appeal.
The box? Who's in the box? What's in the box? What's in the fucking box?
Specifically, his remake of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo was the exact spot where I first truly felt that anxiety and tension that every fan talked about, to the point that I had never really experienced in any other movie prior to this one. I got introduced to his work pretty early in life, around 6 years ago, when I had just started seriously getting into movies. I watched his Fight Club for the first time.
People are always asking me if I know Tyler Durden.
Holy shit, I completely fell in love with that film. It made an incredible impression on me back then. Everything about it felt perfect. The cinematography, the story. At the time, I didn't even know it was based on the book. The music, the atmosphere, and the acting. Fight Club introduced me to a completely new genre of cinema. Of course, back then, I didn't fully understand the movie because I was still really young, but the impression it left was simply astonishing.
The first rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club. The second rule of Fight Club is you do not talk about Fight Club.
And now, many years have passed. I've read the book twice, in Russian and once in English. I watched the movie 9 times, and even read Jack Palahniuk's satirical comic sequel, Fight Club 2. I've also watched a lot of Fincher's other films, though I still haven't seen them all. I really want to get to the rest of his other works, but I keep saving that pleasure for later, which I plan to change. By the way, just a side note, David Fincher is currently working on The Adventures of Cliff Booth, a spin-off of one of my favorite movies, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood by, well, you know exactly who, don't you? But we won't be talking about that movie for a long time yet. First, I need to gain some experience. So one day, when I felt like watching a Fincher's film, I remembered The Game, a movie he had made between Seven and Fight Club. I'd heard that this film is considered pretty weak for Fincher, although it did burst his creation onto the mainstream scene, and therefore I decided to check it out for myself. Starting with a spoiler, I happen to completely disagree with that. The Game was released in 1997. With a budget of $50 million, the movie grossed $109 million at the box office. The story follows Nicholas Van Orton, a millionaire bankier who owns his late father's company and is tired of his rich, predictable life. On his birthday, his father gives him a card for CRS, a company that creates personalized games tailored specifically to each participant. Nicholas joins the game, but very soon, the harmless game turns into a conspiracy against him. What I loved most about the movie is how you, as a viewer, slowly start doubting everything and becoming paranoid yourself. Fincher does something really cool here. You go through this entire journey together with Nicholas. The game starts off harmless enough, but very quickly crosses the line. And you start asking yourself, is this even the game anymore? Or is Nicholas really in serious danger? You start doubting literally everything. Are the people he's talking to actors or just random strangers? Are the situations he finds himself in still part of the script, or is someone really trying to set him up? When he gets attacked, is that still staged, or do people really want to kill him? And that suspense is what makes the movie so great, because throughout the story, you are so thrilled that you can never be 100% sure about anything. I changed my mind like 4 times while watching it, and while at the beginning you're still trying to pick up clues and details to figure out whenever it's still a game or not, but Fincher constantly throws new information that makes you start doubting everything all over again. I also like the movie's melody with these wrong-sounding notes that make the tension even stronger. And while at the beginning you're still trying to understand everything through small clues and details, by the mid-movie, and especially in the end, it starts to feel less and less like a game. Nicholas gets poisoned, hunted down, and even taken to Mexico. And at some point, you find yourself thinking, oh damn, this definitely isn't the game anymore. You become more and more convinced that CRS really want to rob and destroy Nicholas. I was really impressed by how deeply you find yourself involved in the story, because not many movies gives the audience that feeling of literally being a part of action, involved in what's happening.
You may be wondering why the red suit. Well, that's so bad guys can't see me bleed. This guy's got the right idea. He wore the brown pants.
Typically, you have at least a rough idea of where the story is heading, but here you have absolutely no clue of what's going to happen next. It creates this anxiety, and that's exactly what makes the movie so good. I also really love the ending. It's the emotional peak of the whole movie. When Nicholas takes Christine hostage and she tells him it's still part of the game and that his brother's behind the door with champagne, Nicholas doesn't believe her. And at that moment, I was really on edge of myself, not knowing who to believe and who not to. And I just thought, what the hell do you even do in this situation? Then the door opens, Nicholas shoots, and it actually is his brother. He shoots him right in the chest, and I sat there completely shocked because I realized this was still part of the scenario. We were completely manipulated. Fincher literally made us, the viewers, part of this game. But Nicholas had accidentally just killed his own brother, and then Nicholas walks to the edge of the roof and jumps. And at that moment, I was already thinking, wow, what a movie, what an ending. And then he crashes through glass roof and lands on a huge airbag. And that ending itself, in my opinion, is both really cool and pretty controversial. On one hand, it's another huge twist, the kind the movie constantly surprises you with, but here it was the most unexpected one. When Nicholas jumped, I really thought, well, that's it, the movie is over. You absolutely do not expect what happens next. And overall, the film presents CRS as this unbelievably powerful company, capable of organizing absurdly massive personalized scenarios to the point where they literally rent out entire parts of the city. The concept itself isn't realistic, but we, as viewers, buy into this convention because the movie portrays it in such a detailed and convincing way. But the moment where he falls from that haven to the airbag, it breaks with the established convention and feels contrived compared to the rest of the film. Up until that point, almost everything felt like something that could theoretically be organized in real life. Even despite that though, the ending still leaves a huge impression. After the credits, I was thinking, no way, so even that was part of the script. I also thought that perhaps a different ending would have worked better. Nicholas jumps in despair after realizing what he's done, but this time he actually dies. In a way, that would have felt more Fincher-like, darker and crueler. But then I realized that, yes, maybe that ending would have matched the atmosphere better, but it would have completely gone against the movie's main message. The film shows that Nicholas lives a very boring and monotonous life. He's rich and has literally everything: comfort, money, stability. His entire life runs on schedule. Everything is predictable and under control. But there's absolutely no emotions in such a life. Nicholas is a very closed-off person, and we can clearly see that he gets no real joy out of his life. He's just okay to exist in this state, even though he's clearly going for an internal crisis. Moreover, the protagonist is turning 48, exactly the same age his father was when he took his own life. That's exactly why his brother gives him the CRS game as a gift, a company that creates personalized experiences, giving Nicholas the exact experience he was missing. They take away his control over life. First, they make him realize he can't control everything anymore. Then they take away his confidence in what's even real. And eventually, they strip him of his comfort, money, and sense of safety, everything he was used to. So I think the movie's trying to say that if you want to change something in your routine life, sometimes you simply need to do something new. Try a new hobby, start a new sport, step outside your comfort zone. The movie just presents this idea in a very exaggerated way, where Nicholas is literally forced to change under circumstances around him. But in the end, that's exactly what becomes a kind of therapy for him. And if the ending had been different, it would mean that Nicholas chose an internal sleep, just like his father did, running away from his problems instead of facing them. It would have been a tragedy about the man who could never escape his own inner emptiness. But the movie makes a different choice, and the fall turns out not to be a death, but rather a second chance. Because of that, by the end of the film, Nicholas reevaluates his life and takes the first step toward changing it. And finally, one small detail I only noticed on my second viewing. The game actually begins before it officially starts, when Nicholas finds the clown doll outside his house. And in the restaurant scene, the waitress who spills water is actually the same Christine who appears later in the story. But at that moment, just like Nicholas, we didn't pay any attention to her. In the end, I give this film a like. Watching the game is like that moment when your friends start acting weird, and you can't tell anymore if they are really serious or they're just messing with you. That feeling of paranoia that slowly leaks through the screen into you, the viewer, is the best thing about the movie. You start getting anxious yourself, overthinking everything. The music keeps adding pressure, and every new event shakes your already fragile confidence even more. And all of that together creates an incredible effect. I had an amazing time watching this movie, and honestly, I had never seen anything quite like it before, and I highly recommend watching it. And that's all. If you really enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and of course, love movies and watch movies. Bye!